They say a house cannot hate you. They say wood and stone have no memory, no will, no hunger. They are wrong. This is the story of Clara Whitfield, a woman who inherited a house, a secret, and something that had been waiting in the walls for 63 years. Clara had never met her grandmother, not really. A handful of childhood visits, a Christmas card each year, a woman who existed more as a name than a person. So, when the lawyer called to say the old farmhouse on Miller's Ridge now belonged to her, Clara felt nothing but mild curiosity. Her friends warned her, "That place has a reputation," said Denise, who'd grown up 2 towns over. Kids used to dare each other to walk up the driveway at night. Nobody ever went further than the mailbox. Clara laughed it off. Small towns loved their legends. Every old house had one. She moved in on a gray October afternoon, boxes stacked in the back of her car, expecting dust, spiders, and the particular loneliness of an empty inherited home. What she didn't expect was the feeling, immediate, wordless, that something in the house had turned to look at her the moment she stepped through the door. She told herself it was nerves. New place, new silence, nothing more. Hashtag 315. The basement was where she found it 4 days later, while searching for a fuse box. A door, small, barely 5 feet tall, set into the stone foundation itself. Painted over so many times, the color beneath was impossible to guess. No handle, no hinges visible, just a single keyhole, old iron, cold to the touch even through the dust. There was no key anywhere in the house. When she asked her Aunt Margaret about it over the phone, there was a long pause before the answer came. "Your grandmother called it the promise," Margaret said quietly. "She told us never to open it, never to even talk about it too loudly. I thought she was just losing her mind. Near the end, I didn't think..." The line went quiet. "Didn't think what?" Clara asked. "Didn't think you'd actually find it." Ash Patched, Part 2. The first night, Clara didn't sleep well that first week. She blamed it on the unfamiliar creaks, the wind against old windows, the strange acoustics of a house built in 1932. But on the 7th night, she heard scratching. Not the scrabble of mice in the walls, slower, deliberate, coming from directly beneath her bedroom floor, from the basement, from behind that small painted door. Then, so faint she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it, her name. Spoken, not shouted, a soft, almost affectionate whisper, drawn out like a lullaby. Clara. She sat frozen in bed until dawn, telling herself that old houses settle, that pipes make strange sounds, that grief and unfamiliar surroundings could play tricks on anyone's mind. In the morning, she found 4 parallel scratches on the outside of her bedroom door, at exactly the height of her own hand. Unsettled, but unwilling to simply flee the only home she now owned, Clara did what anyone raised on the internet would do. She researched. The town's historical society had a single dusty folder on the house. Inside, a newspaper clipping from 1961 stopped her cold. LOCLGRL 12 vanishes from Miller's Ridge farmhouse. The girl's name was Ivy Prescott. She had lived in the house with a foster family. Quiet, the article said, prone to wandering, fond of the old well behind the barn. She disappeared one November night and was never found. Search parties combed the property for weeks. The only unexplained discovery, buried in a follow-up article 3 months later, was a small wooden door, bricked into the side of the abandoned well, sealed shut from the inside. No one had ever explained how that was possible. Clara sat with the clipping for a long time, the basement door suddenly feeling much closer than 2 floors away. Clara began keeping a journal, partly to track what was happening, partly to convince herself she wasn't losing her grip on reality. Night 9, cold spot in the upstairs hallway, always at 11:47 p.m. Night 11, a child's laughter, once from an empty room. Night 14, the basement door's keyhole gone, in its place, carved fresh into the wood, her own name. Night 15, she dreamed of a girl standing at the foot of her bed, soaked and shivering, mouthing words Clara couldn't hear. She showed the journal to Denise, half expecting to be laughed at. Instead, Denise went pale and told her something Clara hadn't known. Denise's own grandfather had been part of the original search party in 1961. He never talked about it, Denise said, except once. He said they found footprints leading to the well, small ones, barefoot, but they went in only one direction, toward the well, none leading away. That night, compelled by something she couldn't name, Clara went to the basement with a flashlight and her grandmother's old journal, found tucked in an attic trunk days earlier, but unread until now. The final entries, written in a shaking hand, finally gave her answers. Her grandmother had taken in a foster child, Ivy, in 1961, but Ivy hadn't simply wandered off. She had fallen into the old well while playing in the dead of night, and no one had heard her cries in time. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, Clara's grandmother had done something desperate. She'd consulted an old woman from the county who claimed to know rites older than the church, a way to keep a spirit close but contained. A small door was built into the foundation, mirroring the one sealed at the well, meant to give Ivy's spirit a boundary she could not cross. A promise, her grandmother had written, not a prison, a place to stay warm so she wouldn't be alone in the cold dark of that well forever. But promises must be kept. If the door is ever opened, the boundary breaks, and a spirit contained for 60 years does not leave gently. Clara stared at the door. The keyhole had reappeared, and this time resting in it was a small tarnished key she had never seen before. Clara stood there for a long time, flashlight trembling in her hand. She thought about walking away, selling the house, letting the next owner inherit a mystery she didn't have to solve. But she thought too of a 12-year-old girl, alone in the dark for over 60 years, given only a small wooden room instead of a life. She thought of the whisper that said her name, not with menace, she realized now, but with recognition, like being remembered by someone starved for company. Slowly, she turned the key. The door didn't creak. It simply opened as if it had always been waiting for permission. Inside was not a room. It was cold, the specific, bone-deep cold of standing at the edge of a well in November. And standing there, small and barefoot and soaked through, was a girl who looked up at Clara with eyes that held 63 years of waiting. "You found me," Ivy whispered. "Everyone else just left." Clara expected fear. She expected the frozen dread of every ghost story she'd ever heard. Instead, she felt only grief for a girl who never got to grow up and a grandmother who spent her life carrying a guilt she could never confess. "I'm not leaving," Clara said quietly. "Not like they did." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Ivy smiled, small, uncertain, the first smile she may have offered in over half a century, and stepped forward, not through the doorway, but into Clara herself, like warmth returning to a cold room. The scratching stopped that night. The cold spot in the hallway never appeared again. But sometimes, late at night, when Clara laughs, really laughs, for just a fraction of a second, it doesn't sound entirely like her own voice. The wooden door in the basement is still there. Clara never sealed it again. She says it isn't a door anymore. It's a room where someone finally gets to stay, instead of being left behind. Some nights, neighbors passing the old farmhouse on Miller's Ridge swear they see two shapes in the upstairs window, one adult, one small and barefoot, standing together, watching the road, waiting, some say, for whoever comes next.